Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we are live. I'll just give it a minute so that everybody can get in. Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unreal Intro to VR AR workshop. In this workshop, we'll be jumping into an unreal world of VR AR. Uh, Starting off with me, hello, I'm Aditya. My pronouns are he, him. I'm currently a Scrum Master and programmer at Up360. We are a startup working with immersive technology in the education space. I'm also a co founder at Looseball Studios, where we are currently experimenting with VR in social settings. And I enhance learning and social experiences using emerging technologies on a daily basis. Down there are my socials. If you ever want to connect with me, send me a DM. Feel free to. It's always open. Moving on. So this is the agenda for today. So we'll be going over what is VR AR so that we know like why we are here. So we'll going over what is VR AR, what can we do with it, with the technology, how do we build stuff for the immersive space, and then we'll go over building our first virtual reality interaction using Unreal Engine and the virtual reality template that they provide. And at the end, we'll have some concluding statements and a Q&A session. So let's get started. Before that, please slide into Slido using the link below because I have a poll for you guys before we start our journey in VR AR. So just go to the link on my screen right now. It's also posted in the chat. So if you just click on the link, you'll be forwarded onto Slido. So what is VR AR? If you go to slido.com, join using the code 642868. I'll start a poll. And what comes to your mind when you hear virtual reality? So take your time, go into the Slido, just write out the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear virtual reality. It could be anything. It could be, games, Beat Saber comes to your mind, or, education comes to your mind, movies come to your mind, anything that comes to your mind. Sword Art Online, yeah, pretty nice game. What else? Ready Player One, Immersion, Oculus. That's great because we're going to use Oculus today to create our VR demo. What else? What else do we have? Immersion, Unity, Tony Stark. Yes, there's actually an Iron Man game in VR. You invented it. That's amazing. Um, Real life games. Yes, yes. VR chat, very big, like a social experience in VR. Okay, Bunch, Facebook Monopoly. We'll not talk about that. It was stolen from me. OpenVR. That's actually a great point. We'll talk about OpenVR today. Unity is a big word. Unity, the game engine. So yeah, awesome, awesome. So you guys, I think, already know a bit about VR. So let's actually dive into it. Dive more into it. I'll stop this and we'll go back. So, what is VR AR? Starting with virtual reality. Virtual reality is an immersive experience where the user is taken to a virtual world and there is no connection to the real world environment. So in the GIF you can see on beside me, the person is wearing an Oculus Rift headset. Is one of the first commercially available headsets, and when they wear it, they have these controllers, and the controllers have an immersive, the hands, the virtual hands, virtual objects, and you can like grab stuff, interact with things, talk to people, and you are not in your real world. You are actually teleported into a virtual space. The next thing about virtual reality is it needs a special like a specialized headset. You can't do virtual reality on your pancake screen. I call desktops pancake screens because it's flat, it's like a pancake. So you can't do it on our pancake screen. You need specialized headsets such as the Oculus Rift, the Quest, Steam Index. There's like specialized hardware for virtual reality, and we'll be using some of that specialized hardware today for our demo. And the biggest thing about virtual reality, it's extremely fun. Last night, some friends, we played Phasmophobia in VR. If you know about Phasmophobia, it's a horror video game. And in VR, it just double the scarier because when the ghost pops up right in your face, it's extremely scary. You might get a heart attack. Just be careful. But yeah, in this GIF, you can see the guys playing Beat Saber. Please don't move backwards in Beat Saber. It's a standing game. Move left to right only. But yeah, it's extremely fun. I always recommend anybody starting off with VR to start off with Beat Saber because it's a standing experience, very easy to get accustomed to VR. Next up, we have augmented reality. So, what is augmented reality? Basically, augmented reality adds into your existing reality. You need specialized headset for like an XR headset, which is like a Microsoft HoloLens, or you can also do it on your mobile phone. The basic example of what we do augmented reality in everyday life is filters. Instagram filters, Snapchat filters, all these filters are actually AR applications which add to your existing reality. In the GIF on the side, again, that's a new movie, Free Guy. If you haven't watched it, I recommend watching it. Where Ryan Reynolds is actually wearing XR, like a AR glasses, and then you see when he opens the glasses, he's in his like normal world. But when he wears this, his world is augmented. That means things are added into his world, like a med pack, all these fighter jets, these soldiers running around. So that is augmented reality, and it's not currently there at that stage, but we are reaching there. It's just the start. So before we move on to what can we do with it, I'll just check if we have any questions on Slido. Do we need any special equipment hardware for building VR AR applications? Yes, we do. You do need a VR headset. For this workshop specifically, if you check the hack pack, it's listed that you do need an Oculus Quest or a Rift S. Any Oculus headset would work. Where do I get Reynolds VR glasses? We don't have it yet. Somebody's probably making it. Is it possible to create AR VR applications where you don't have to physically participate but can remain still and control everything? It's possible to create VR out, but you don't have to physically participate. You can still remain and yes, you can actually use your gamepad to interact with. There are applications where you don't even have to be in VR. AR. Like a Rec Room, you can just use your desktop and connect and play with your friends who are in VR. But if that's not the right answer, could you give me a more detail about like what are you asking? So moving on, what can we do with it? Lots of things. First off, make your own virtual pet. So that is a augmented reality application I worked on in one of the workshops I took, and you can actually try it out at that link below. It's a GitHub link. You can. It's also a live application, so you can try it out, read the instructions. So that's what we made in a separate workshop that I hosted. We made our own virtual reality pet. So you can do that in AR, and in VR, you can create fun social experiences with your friends. So that is me playing Loose Ball, the game I'm working on. You can actually check it out at looseballgame.com. It'll be soon be available for your Quest headsets if you have one, and you can play like a multiplayer loose ball game with your friends. But there's more to it, more to just games and making a virtual pet. VR is currently also used for healthcare. There's a company called Precision OS who are currently working on a simulation for orthopedics, where they are doing knee surgeries, knee replacement surgeries, uh, in VR. So instead of trying it on a skeleton or like a real human, they they have a multiplayer application where everybody gets into VR, and then the doctor can show the residents students how to do that, the residents doctors how to do that. And then there is tourism and travel. This is a screenshot from Google Maps. Google Maps has an AR feature where a fox walks you through where you want to go, and then you can actually see arrows in your real world, which will be so much easier than checking my watch if I'm going to the right direction or missing my turn because I walked a little further. Yeah, just waiting for the day when I have GTA type navigation in the real world, because I miss turns very often. Then there's obviously manufacturing and occupational safety. That image is not very clear, but that's actually you're wearing a welding helmet and you're welding onto a rebar that's used in constructions. But occupational safety is very important because training someone in a real world scenario can cause, health. It's a health hazard. Somebody can get injured, but uh, in VR you can't get hurt because you can do mistakes but not get hurt, but you can get a feedback, hey, if you did this in real world, you might have died from electrocution. uh, and that's what we say at up 360 is, we are not just saving you money, we are saving lives, we are saving literal lives in occupational safety. Then there's obviously games, leisure, and entertainment. As I talked about, Beat Saber, highly recommended. But there's more advanced games such as Half-Life Alyx. If you are very, an advanced VR user, and you're used to VR, I recommend that game as well. It's amazing. And then there's education and training. This is training an electrician, like a residential electrician, how to use a multimeter, how to use tools. And like I said, if that that fuse was on and somebody tried to touch that, he or she would have gotten electrocuted. But because this is VR, it's all safe. Then there's e-commerce and retail. IKEA has this feature where you can display your furniture in your living room before buying it, and you can also customize your furniture. There's also features such as that's IKEA, and there's another usage in the car industry where you can customize your cars in virtual reality. Then the last part, which I love about VR mode most, is communication and collaboration. This snippet is from Spatial. It's a collaborative workspace tool. And then recently, Facebook released Horizon Workrooms, where you can actually, get your real life keyboard. You can work together in a common workspace. So this is the most powerful feature for me in VR, is to create that like uh somebody is present in the same room as I am, but virtually, not in real life. And in COVID times, in these times of the pandemic, it's really important, uh creating a virtual workspace basically. So these are what all we can do with it. Now let's crunch some numbers. You might be thinking, okay, we can do this much and this is VR AR. There's This industry is actually growing right now. So by 2030, it will give a global boost to our global GDP by $1,542 billion. And by 2030, we'll have more than 23 million jobs in the space. And this data is actually from a source from a study by PwC. It's called the Seeing is Believing report. I have linked it in the resources. You can check it out. There's more information about industry specific, like where these money will be going and where these jobs will be. So that is the industry. It's really growing right now. I like my co-founder says, It's when Apple was coming out with the smartphone in 2008, 2000, like the 2000s. Uh, it's what VR is at right now. It's gonna boom, and then one day everybody has a VR headset. Uh, it's a future. Okay, moving on how do we build stuff. But let's see if we have any questions. What about AR? Do you need any hardware for that too? As I specified, you need either a mobile phone, or if you just want to do like very enterprise level AR, there's like specialized headsets such as HoloLens. If you have only UE4 but not a VR headset, is that okay? No, I wouldn't recommend that for this workshop because we'll be doing just VR. Does VR AR use AI ML? That's a very good question. It actually uses some of computer vision because it has to track depth, and it has hand tracking and to track the controller. I really don't know about how much AI ML does it use. Are holograms a type of AR, and why aren't they widely used? Good question. Yes, holograms are a type of AR. They aren't widely used specifically because they're expensive. They're expensive, and it's hard to create that depth in using just a few devices. But if you want to know more about holograms, there is actually a device called Microsoft uh, Kinect. Kinect, not the one which comes with the Xbox. They actually created a Kinect. You can learn more about holograms in there. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming soon. Okay, moving on. How do we build stuff with VR, like for VR and AR? First off, you need to select what platform you're building. If you want to build for PC, if you want to build for like a standalone headset, such as the Quest or the Quest 2, which don't need a PC. It's just untethered headset. You just put it on and that's it. You switch it on. You can play virtual reality experiences in it. Uh, if you want to build for mobile, mobile VR. You remember we had like the Google Cardboard. That's basically that. And if mobile is also used for AR, so Instagram filters, Snapchat filters, or even like standalone AR games using Unity or Unreal. And then there is for the web, there's obviously WebXR. If you want to just build and deploy on a Chrome browser or a Firefox browser, there's that. So first off, you need to select your platform. Where do you want to build? Second, you need to select if you want to use a game engine or you want to use the frameworks. So I'll explain what a game engine is. Think of a car. A car has an engine and a car has a chassis. Chassis is the body of the car. Chassis is the game, for example, and the engine of the car is our game engine for the game. So without an engine, there is no car. It's just a box of steel, I think, aluminum, whatever it's made of, even carbon fiber sometimes. So that's what a game is. A game is nothing. You can't even make a game without an engine. So that's why you need a game engine. Even for VR, AR simulations, you need a game engine. And frameworks are things which are on top of, a scripting language or a browser-based experience. You might have had a workshop on 3.js. 3.js is a web framework to make 3D objects, 3D applications for the web. And A-Frame is similar to 3.js. It's developed by Mozilla, and it's also a 3D framework for the web. Now, Unreal Engine and Unity. There's a lot of debate in the industry which is a better engine, which is a bad engine. I don't believe in that. I love both. So Unreal Engine has its own pros and cons. Unity has its own pros and cons, but Unity is more widely used. They both are game engines. Both can do VR. Both can do AR. So based on what kind of application you are building, you choose your engine. So my rule of thumb is if I'm building for PC VR, I use Unreal Engine because it's more powerful. The things look much more beautiful in Unreal Engine. The lighting is just awesome. If I'm building for mobile, if I'm building AR applications, I use Unity because it's much more lightweight. It's much more faster on standalone headsets or your mobile phones. So that is the few things we need to build our stuff. Finally, we need an IDE with dark mode. If you use light mode, it's totally okay, but please, if you have an IDE with dark mode, that's the best. You need to know a bit of coding. I say a bit because nowadays game engines such as Unreal and Unity, they both have visual scripting tools where you can like drag and drop and do programming. If you remember Scratch, it's something like that, but obviously a little more complicated. Uh, but yeah, even if you don't know a lot of coding, you can just use the visual scripting tools in these engines and build virtual reality applications. And finally, you need the drive. We all start side projects in universities and we never finish it because there's just not the drive just dies out. So have the drive. If you start building something, have it finished, or get the MVP done. Get it just get it give it to people, give it to your friends and family, and let them try, get feedback, iterate on it, improve it, give it back. You'll get a good product at the end. Awesome. So that's all we have. What is VR? Now we know what is VR, AR, what can we do with it, and how do we build stuff with it. We have all the knowledge we need, we have all the power we need. Now we need the drive to actually build stuff. So let's open our Unreal Engine. So as mentioned in the hack pack, we need to download Epic Games Launcher and download Unreal Engine 4.27. If you have done that, you will open Epic Games Launcher, go to the Unreal Engine tab, and go to the library, and you will see that you have 4.27 installed. What you can do next is launch it. And while it's launching, give it a second. So while it launches, let's head over to another poll on how familiar are you with Unreal Engine? Have you ever heard of it? What is Unreal Engine? Never heard of it. Like, where is this, that alien stuff? And if you have used it before. Okay, many of you haven't heard of it. Oh no, it's 50-50. Nobody has used it before. That's why I am here. We'll use it. Yeah. Oh, someone has used it. That's awesome. Yeah, because most people know about Unity, and there is a kind of a shortage of Unreal Engine developers. So if you learn it, you guys are in demand. That's what I can say from my experience. Okay. While you guys answered that, it seems most of you haven't heard or seen it. Uh, Once you hit launch, you will have this Unreal Project browser window where you can see, excuse me, where you can see your recent projects, but also new projects. There's film and television, architecture, automotive, but what we care about is games. Let's click on games and select next. Before we start on with Unreal, I just want to say this thing is recorded. So if you miss anything, don't worry. You can always go back in the recording and see and follow in your own time. And I've like mentioned tons of resources in the hack pack. So you can go to each link. There's like YouTube links. And if even if that don't work, just DM me and I'll send you more resources or I can help you in person. Not in person, my bad, but I can help you. Uh, so yeah, so let's go over it again. So we hit games, we go next, then we get to select a template. Let's select virtual reality template. We'll get some cool virtual reality stuff already, made for us. We'll hit next. We'll select here, we need starter content with it. I'll save it on my desktop. So there's three dots, you can choose where you want to save it. I want to save it on my desktop, and I'll call it HTN Project 2021. Cool. I'll hit create project, and then it'll be a while before it creates a project. While it does that, let's look at some questions. Do you have any recommendations for VR headsets? Like one that's the best value and or a cheap one just to build VR application? The cheapest VR headset currently is the Oculus Quest 2. And I think that's the most commercially available headset. If you can get that, get the cheapest one. It's 128 GB one version. That's the best headset to get started with. And I have two headsets with me right now. So this is the Rift S. This is currently discontinued. This is a PC VR headset. This needs to be connected to a powerful PC to render virtual reality applications. And what we will be using today is called a Quest. This is the Quest 1, not the Quest 2. And it's connected to my PC using a link cable. So it acts as a PC VR headset just for this workshop. But if I remove the cable, I can still use it as a standalone headset. Okay, Unreal Engine is open. So if this is your first time looking at Unreal Engine, welcome to Unreal Engine. This is the interface, this big screen which you see, which has some colorful objects. This is called a viewport. And if your computer is lagging a lot while doing this, you can set the scalability settings up here to low or medium. I'll just set it to medium, so because I'm streaming. Down here is your content browser. So everything related to your project is in the content browser. Think of it as a file explorer. And if you have used Unity, think of it as the project bar, which has all the files, assets related to the project. So this is that. It's the content browser. It's basically all the files used in my project. On the top right is my world outliner, which shows everything that is there in the world. So this cube, everything is in the world outliner. Below that, you can see the details panel. It basically shows you the details of everything in the level. So whatever you select, you can see its location, rotation, scale. Scale is basically the size of the object. You can just scale something big, small, like that. If you change the numbers, I'll just set it back to 1. Location is where relative to the origin this thing is. This box is currently at 353 on the x-axis, and 352 on the y-axis, and 50 on the z-axis. And it's rotated by -100 on the z-axis. That's just basic stuff. Well, engine just lagged out. Welcome to Unreal Engine. It might crash a lot. Okay, so Unreal Engine crashed. No biggie, we'll just restart it again. So keep in mind, it might crash. 4.27 just came out, and it didn't. It has a bit of bugs, so it crashes sometimes. So we'll just go to our projects, my projects, and open HTN Projects 2021 again, and then open it up. So I was showing you guys the detail panel, where you can set the location, rotation, scale. So that is that. Now, if you have a VR headset like me, we are going to go into VR and check out the template. So you see there's a toolbar here, and there's some tools here. Just go to the play tool, and there's a drop down arrow here. If you select that, there's a VR preview right there. It says play this level in VR, and we'll go in VR. I'm actually in VR now, and the controls for this template are pretty basic. So if I push my thumbstick down, I can teleport, and you can see my teleportation arc. I can teleport. If you see the side trigger, this is also called a secondary trigger. You can put it over objects. Oh, I hit my monitor. Give me one sec. I'll just take a step back. VR is dangerous. You might hit people. And you can grab stuff with your secondary trigger. And this is what is already in the template. So they have done half of our job. So if you want to make a VR sim for Hack the North, go ahead. We can already grab stuff. I'm going to show you how do you grab stuff though. How do you use this template? You can grab the gun. It's actually called a pistol for some reason, but it looks more like a gun. And you can shoot stuff with the trigger, and it shoots a yellow ball. Uh, yeah, so that is the VR template. You can move around. I think you can grab this ball as well. You can throw it. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to come back from virtual reality back to the real world. Okay, so before we jump on to actually creating stuff, there is a fundamental thing in Unreal Engine which we need to learn, which is actors, pawns, and components. So, what are actors? Actors are basically an object that can be placed into a level. So, these cubes, that camera thingy, that these pistols, they all are actors. Now, a pawn, on the other hand, is a base class of an actor that can be controlled by a player or AI. So in this template, my player is the pawn. I can control it using a controller. I can move around. I can grab stuff with it. You could see my hands moving, so that means it's a pawn. And it can also be controlled by an AI, not my character, but if there's a character in the level which is just moving around, that is an AI. AI controlled pawn. And finally, there are components. Components are just special types of objects that actors can attach to themselves as, as sub objects. I'll give you an analogy because this is a little bit complicated language sometimes. So all things in my room are actors. My bed is an actor. This chair is an actor. This window is an actor. Wall is an actor. This monitor is an actor. But my body is the pawn. Guess who's controlling my body? My brain. So my brain is controlling my body, and this is basically a pawn. I can move it. I can do some actions with it. I'm controlling it. I'm moving my legs. That's what you can do with a pawn. It needs a brain to be controlled. Uh, my mouth is a sound component, and my eyes are a camera component. So now that I'm speaking, I'm like a speaker. I'm speaker speaking. And that's why I call it an audio component, because I'm emitting sound. My eyes are a camera which see stuff and then tell my brain, okay, this image needs to be rendered. This image is getting rendered. This image is getting rendered. This monitor is getting rendered. So my eyes are like a camera component. It just looks at stuff and tells somebody else to render it. For example, my monitor, it tells my monitor to render it. In VR, it tells the VR screen, there's like screen inside it, to render the images. Cool. Now that we know what are actors and pawns, we can finally jump on to what we are going to do. Create a project using UE4 VR template. We did that. We went over the UE4 user interface. We'll now talk about blueprints and C++ component. What is C++? Okay, now let's go to our VR template. Let's go to blueprints. There's a bunch of blueprints here. Let's first see how do they make stuff grabbable. When you double click on a thing in the component content browser, it opens it up. and it opens a new window. In that window, you can see the actor. So as I said, actors are anything that can be placed into a level. Components are anything that can be attached to an actor. In our example, it's the grab component that's attached. But what are blueprints? Blueprints are a visual scripting tool. It's basically the same as programming in C++, but visually, so that you don't have to remember the syntax. You don't miss any semicolons here, basically, and your program fails. Uh, I'll remove these two notes because we won't talk about it much. But event begin play is your uh, entry point of your simulation. So whenever I hit play, that is the first function that gets called. And if I want to do something here, I can just drag an execution node and I can say print string. So I'll just print hello world because that's the basic of programming. Hello world. Now you should see hello world get printed multiple times because we have how many? 8 actors in the level. So you will see hello world get printed 8 times. So if again I go here, I won't go into VR, I'll just simulate it, and hello world gets printed 8 times. We set the duration to be 2 seconds. That's why it went in a jiffy, but if you can increase the duration of hello world, if you expand here, I want it up there for like 20 seconds, it'll be more helpful. So you can see that is how easy it is to do hello world using blueprints. So even begin play is like the main door of your house. Everything starts there. So I'll delete this because I don't want to print hello world 8 times every time I play. Let's talk about C++ now. This is more advanced stuff, which we won't cover in this workshop, but Unreal Engine is actually based off C++, and you can code. If you want to code in C++, you can definitely do that. But I only recommend coding bigger systems. And if you want to make custom, you want to do custom systems and custom big systems using Unreal Engine, only then go to C++. Else everything is accessible in blueprints. And I don't know why you would go to C++. So it's basic C++. I've attached again resources in the hack pack if you want to know more about Unreal C++. It's all there, but we won't be covering C++ in this workshop. We'll just be going over blueprints. Okay, coming back, we'll give a brief overview of the grab component and the interface. You might have not heard the word interface before, or you might have if you attended the Intro to APIs workshop. But I'll give another overview what an interface is in our case. But let's start with component. We have the grab component, which is currently just a component sitting on a static mesh, which makes any object grabbable. Uh, the easiest way to explain this is I'll create a grabbable actor right in front of you. So if you go back to your content folder, and if you right click here, you can go create a basic asset. Let's create a blueprint class. You click on that, we'll create an actor because it'll be placed in the level. And we'll call it BP, which stands for blueprint underscore, let's call it my grabbable. Did I spell grabbable right? I hope. Yeah. Yes, I did. Um, okay, let's open it up. It has nothing. It just has a default scene root, which we would not need. So I'll just remove it. But first, let's add a static mesh component, which is basically just a mesh, which you'll see. And I'll just drag it onto there, and it'll make it the root. That easy. So if I undo it and do it again, so drag the static mesh on a default root, I'll make it the current root. And on the right, in your details panel, you can see you can assign it a static mesh. So let's assign it a cone. Nice, beautiful cone. Looks like a witch's hat. We'll attach it, save it, and then we'll go here, add another component, and we'll add our grab component. So if you type in grab, it just should come up. You select on that, and that's it. We just made our first grabbable actor. Okay, now we are going to place it in the level. To place stuff in the level, uh, very simple. Save. Very simple. You just drag it. Oh my, that's big. That's big. You just drag it in. You just drag it into the level. As I told you guys just a couple of minutes ago, you can set the size of stuff in the level. I'll just scale it. You see the lock icon there? Uh, if the lock icon is not set to locked, what it'll do is it'll just scale on one axis, and which looks very weird. So I want to scale it in on all axes. I'll just hit the lock icon and I'll make it 0.4. Pretty good size to be grabbable. So it scales it on all axes if the icon is locked. And I'll go to VR preview. My hands, my hands. There are my hands. I'll go and I'll go touch the cone and pick it up. So I just pulled my side trigger to grab it. You can wear it as a hat. Oh, actually, it's gone. So yeah, that's our first grabbable ever in VR. Now let's talk about interfaces before we jump on into doing more stuff with it. You know, when we grab the gun pistol and when you pull the trigger, it shot bullets. It's because of this event. There's an event in the blueprint pistol where it says trigger pressed. Now it says from VR interaction BPI. BPI stands for blueprint interface. And I'll talk more about interfaces just in a minute. So whenever we pull the trigger, it does some action. It basically spawns the projectile, the bullet, and plays a vibration effect, and that's it. That's all it does. Um, so yeah, let's see what is an interface. To learn about interfaces, we need to also talk about a bit about inheritance. Inheritance, you might have heard in terms of family. I'm going to inherit my grandfather's property. Just kidding. No, that's not a good joke. But yeah, inheritance also is there in programming. Inheritance is a procedure in which one class inherits the attributes and methods of another class. The class whose properties and methods are inherited is known as the parent class. The class that inherits the properties from the parent class is the child class. That's a lot of English, but I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll give you an example just in a bit. But before that, let's talk about what is an interface. An interface is a description of the actions that an object can do. Simple English, but in programming terms, an interface is a programming structure that allows the computer to enforce certain properties on a class. Time for an example. For example, we have a parent vehicle class, which has a start engine function. Now, imagine you have a vehicle parent class. Out of that parent vehicle class, you have these children. So think of like a family tree, right? There's a vehicle class, then you have the car as a child, the bike as a child, the truck as a child. All three of them are actually vehicles. And they all need to have a start engine function because their parent has a start engine function. A car doesn't start the same as a bike. A bike doesn't start the same as a truck. They all have separate starting functions. So each child has to specify what the start engine function does. So the parent is an interface where the start engine function is defined. The car, bike, and truck are the children of the vehicle class, the parent class, where they have to define, each class has to define the start engine function. So a car, you want to, you know, put the key in and then put the car on neutral or something. press the clutch. That's how you start an engine in a car. A bike, you probably do another method. You kick the stand to start the engine. In a truck, there's probably a different method to start it. But because we defined it in the vehicle class, that start engine, so any person can come in and be like, oh, I want to start a vehicle. They'll all call the start engine function. And based on whether it's a car, bike, or truck, it will start that vehicle in that specific way, which is specified in the child. Okay, now that we have talked about interfaces, let's see how did they create their interface. So to add an interface, we'll just go to our class settings and we'll go here add, and we'll add BPI underscore VR interaction, and it'll find and it'll implement that interface. Now, if you see a change in our class now, if there's a new interfaces like section here, and if you expand it, you will see these functions. Like I said, we had a start engine function in the vehicle. These are like the start engine functions, but declared in our interaction interface. Let's see the interaction interface. So if you click on the magnifying glass here, it will take you to the interface where you'll see these functions are declared. But if you double click on them, there's nothing actually, it's not doing anything, because we want the classes which actually inherit this interface to implement what, you know, like pressing the trigger would do. So we go back to our grabbable. We'll say, hey, when the trigger is pressed, we want to right click there. We want to do something, implement event. We want to, what should we do? Let's grab the static mesh. So if you just click your mouse on it and drag it, you'll get the static mesh component. Let's change the material on it. So material is basically this. It's basically, color, texture, anything that is applied to a static mesh. It's basically painting it. You're painting it with that texture, that color. If you go into that material, I just double clicked on it. You can see it just has a color and a roughness, which makes it rough or smooth based on how much roughness we pass in. But currently we just have a color and it's white. So back to our grabbable blueprint, I'll set the material. So there's a set material function. So under rendering material, set material, you click on it, you'll get, these are called nodes. And when I drag this to this means this is called an execution node. So whenever this event is called, so whenever I call the trigger pressed function, it will set the material of the static mesh to be currently none. But let's click on this. It'll give us a drop down. We'll set it to be, let's set it to be cobblestone pebble. You can set it to be anything. And yeah, so when I press the trigger, it should change the material to be this guy. So if I press on the magnifying glass, it should take me how the material looks. Give it a while, it'll render. Once it's done compiling the material, you should see how our cone should look. So it should look like pebbles. So if I go to my map, go to VR again, my hands, grab it using my side trigger, and then pull my trigger, it looks like pebbles. That's it. That's how we implement our interface. We can create a lot more functions and implement them. You might be thinking, Aditya, who is calling this function? You didn't call it. Let me show you. Let's go back a little. Let's go back to our VR template. Let's go to our blueprints. Let's go to our pawn. So as I talked about, pawn is my hands. My hands, it has my hand, it has the camera, It is the VR player, basically. In your games, you have 3D players you are controlling. In VR, you control a VR player. In the event graph, there are functions implemented here. There's a lot, which I'll let you guys have take a look. I've linked actually the VR template walkthrough by Unreal. You can watch that video. It's a very good walkthrough of the whole template in depth. But for us, all that matters is if we pull the trigger. So you can see there's an input action. Input action is basically whatever the controller is doing. And if we pull the right trigger, it says, oh, you pressed the right trigger. And if we are holding something in our right hand, it will basically call the trigger pressed function. And if we release it, it'll call the released function. And that's about it. That's what the interface does. Whenever we what if we are holding something which has the interface implemented, it will call that function on the blueprint. So for in our case, it'll call on the grabbable event trigger pressed whenever we pull the trigger, and if we are holding the grabbable. If we are not holding it and we pull the trigger, it'll do nothing because we have a check if we are holding something right here. It's called an is valid check. And same for this guy. In the pistol, if we are not holding the pistol, grabbing the pistol, it won't do anything. But if we grab it, pull the trigger, this function will get triggered. Triggered press. Trigger press will then trigger uh, the pistol, and then it'll spawn the bullets. And that's about it. That's interfaces. That's components. That's how easy it is to create virtual reality interactions. Before we end, let's do something fun. As I said in the book, let's get an asset from the marketplace, make it grabbable, do some fun stuff with it. So the marketplace is a beautiful place where you can get free stuff. If you like shopping, which I don't, you can obviously spend more time here. So if you go back to Epic Games Launcher, you go to Marketplace, you go to free, and just click free. There's a lot of free stuff. You can see, oh, free. But let's select our supported engine version. So we'll select 4.27. That's the engine we are working with. Again, lots of free stuff. Um, so I've already bought this asset, but if you can see it, AH64D Apache Longbow, you can, for you, it won't show write a review. It will show add to cart. So you can just add to cart and go to your shopping cart and check out. It will just, you'll just buy it like that. I won't buy that asset because I already have bought the Apache Longbow. I'll go to my library and you can see there's a vault. The vault has everything you want for your project. So I have a lot of assets. Let's just search for my Apache. Give me my helicopter. I'll add it to the project. For you, you would have to download the model and then you can add it to the project. For me, I've already downloaded the model because it's a gig big. It's like 1 GB big. So I'll just add it to the project. When you add to project, it will show all the projects you have. But in our case, we'll just add it to Hack the North 2021. So I'll say add to project. And I'll do some adding. Awesome. So that's added to the project. Go to content and you can see there's a new folder here called Vigilante content. If you open it, if you open the vehicles, there's the heli, and you can see we have the heli model right here. It's beautiful. Awesome. Let's create a new map. To create a new map, you'll go to File, New Level. You'll select the default map, and it just creates a new map. And let's select Save All here. Let's just do Control S. It'll do It'll ask you where do you want to save the level. I'll say save it in my contents, and instead of naming it L new map, uh, just new map, I'll say L underscore heli map, and I hit save. Now you can see I have a heli map here. This is where my player will start. So quick note, um, this is the feet of the player. So we'll just pull it down on the ground. So my feet is here, not up in the air somewhere. And save it. Control S to save. And yeah, and if you go test out your newly made level just to make sure everything is fine, you just hit play. There's my hands. There is my hands. You can see my right hand there. The level has nothing yet. We'll just add stuff to it. Awesome. So I told you guys about inheritance. Now you'll see it in action. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a child of this blueprint. If I open this heli blueprint, you'll see why do I want to make a child. So this heli blueprint has some very helpful functions which I want, like set firing. I want to be able to fire, and stuff like control speed of main motor, which sets the speed of the main motor. Uh, Rotor. So I'm going to go to content. I'm going to right click here, blueprint class again. I'll go to all classes, which will show all the classes this project can inherit from. And I'll go search for BP underscore West Heli, this guy. So I'll just select the BP West Heli underscore AH64D, which is our blueprint, which I just showed you guys. I'll select this, and it created a new blueprint. I'll name it BP underscore Heli. Save it, open it up. You can see, because this is in the parent, you can see the child has inherited everything. So the skeletal mesh, the VFX, and all that stuff. So if now first step first, let's make it grabbable. So let's add a grab component. We have a grab component. Let's go back to a map, drag it in here. I'm not grabbing that. That's too big. Let's scale it. Let's scale it down. Let's scale it down to 0.5. Okay, it's still big. Let's scale it down to 0. That is, let's make it a little bigger. It's 0.8. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now we have a heli. Now let's see if we can grab it. So I hit play, go back into VR. Where are my hands? I can grab it. So you can see this beautifully detailed model in VR. It's childhood all over again. Ooh, cool. But it's a better heli than what you played as a child. So let's try shooting. So as showed before, we'll go here, add an interface. What was it? BPI, PR interaction. We have some interface functions here. I'll implement the trigger pressed and the trigger released. So when I press the trigger, I want to set firing active to be true. So I want it to be firing when I pull the trigger. And when I release the trigger, I want set firing active to be false. So it's false. Okay, save it. Go back into Unreal Engine. Oh, sorry. And now if I pull the trigger, you can see it's firing. I hope you can. I hope. Yeah, you guys can see it. So it's firing. It's firing. It's just running the VFX right now. It's not firing anything, but we'll add something that it can fire. So let's go back into Unreal. Let's fire something. Remember, the gun was shooting projectiles. We'll just yoink that. We'll just snap that blueprint from Unreal. So what I'll do is I'll go to VR template. I'll go to blueprints. I'll just Control C on the projectile blueprint. Go back to my content. Control V. Programming, guys. That's the best programming you can do. And just rename it to be Heli Projectile. And if I open it up, you can see it has a single function. It has on component begin overlap. Wow, that's a long name. What does it do? Well, basically, whenever we overlap something, so in collisions, for example, this hand, I I take this controller, I I hit it, right? I'm overlapping with this hand, and whenever I overlap with it, that function will get triggered. So in our case, we have this sphere collision, which is just a sphere collider. It is not a mesh or anything. We have a mesh separately, which is a child of the sphere collision. So if the sphere collision moves, the static mesh moves with it. Uh, so sphere collision on begin overlap, it'll uh, it'll just check if the object which we are overlapping with is it simulating physics. What is simulating physics? Simulating physics is if an object simulates physics, like this controller is currently simulating physics. It has gravity applied to it, and I push it, it has force applied to it. But if an object is not simulating physics, it'll just be a static object in the scene. Gravity won't affect it, any force won't affect it. So that it checks if I'm actually simulating physics on whatever I'm hitting. Because if you're not, I don't want to do anything. But if it is simulating physics, we want to add an impulse. Physics 101, if you guys should know what is impulse. But it's a force applied. So based on how fast the projectile is moving, we multiply it with a factor of they multiply it with a factor of 1. I will multiply it a factor of 400 because we want it to go flying, just yeet it out of the world. And then it just destroys itself. Poor soul just dies after hitting something. Okay, so you might be seeing what is projectile movement. It's something Unreal has created. We didn't create it. You can make use of it, but projectile movement component basically, it does all the projectile math you don't have to do. Whenever we spawn an object with the projectile movement component, we can add velocity, do some projectile motion without having to code our own physics. We can just set some parameters here. So in our case, when the projectile spawns, we get a velocity of 1200 on the x-axis. So when it spawns, when you spawn it, it just goes 1200 on the x-axis with the velocity of 1200. Excuse me, with the velocity of 1200. We want it even more faster, so I'll give it 2000. That's actually 2000 meters per second. Yes, Unreal has units in meters. Okay, so our projectile is all set up. Do we want to change the mesh? No, let it be a yellow ball. Scale is fine. Actually, let's make the scale a bit bigger. Make it like 0.3. Okay. Okay. So we want the heli to shoot projectiles. If we go back to our heli blueprint, let's make it. So we drag an execution node when we are trying to fire. Whenever the trigger is pressed, we drag it. We say spawn actor from class. Spawn an actor from class. We select the class here. I want bp underscore heli projectile to be spawned. I spawn it. So if I hit compile, it'll give me a warning error saying that, oh, I have not specified any transform. So what is a transform? Transform is just a combination of location, rotation, and scale. So what I'll do is wouldn't want to select a transform, just a random point. Because this thing is a skeletal mesh, it has bones in it. A lot of bones, which the artist has created. I just want to find the bone which is on the tip of the nozzle, like the muzzle. So if I scroll down in the whole hierarchy, there is a socket here, which says gun tilt joint socket, which is at the correct position we want. So we want our projectile to be spawned here. So I'm just going to copy that name. You see that socket name there? I'm just going to copy that name. I'm going to go back to my blueprint, recombine this struct pin to be a transform. I'm going to drag the skeletal mesh. I'm going to drag a node from the skeletal mesh node and say search for bone. I just search transform. Let's scroll down a bit. It will, let me search, get transform, get socket transform. And the in socket name, we can just paste in the gun tilt joint socket. So we'll get the transform, like the location, rotation, and scale of that bone in world space. And we'll just attach that return value, which returns a transform, into our projectile. And if you hit compile, save, it should now spawn a projectile. Let's see. Let's go back into VR. How? Okay, Unreal decided to just die. Okay, we're back. We're back, guys. I grabbed my helicopter and oh, there you go. It's shooting yellow balls that are the new rockets. So if I pull the trigger, it shoots a yellow projectile. But the projectile isn't hitting anything and it's not doing anything. Let's actually do something with it. We'll go to window. We'll go to place actors. So what place actors is as I told you guys about actors, there's like a bunch of pre-made actors in made by Unreal. So if I want a cube, I can just drag and drop a cube, and I have a cube now. I have a cube in my level. There's a bunch of stuff. I'll just go through the basics. There's like light, cinematics, visual effects. You can do all of that, but right now all I need is a cube which tumbles over after I shoot it with my heli. I'm gonna close this place actors now. So in the details section here, first off, it's too big. Let's scale it. Let's scale it to be 0.6. That's big enough. And let's scroll down a bit and set generate overlap events to be true. Else, as you guys saw in our projectile, this only adds impulse if it overlaps. So if we didn't have overlap events set to be true, this is what will happen. It won't fly. Give me one sec. Okay, Unreal decided to freeze. I'll restart it. Okay, we are back. You grab it and see it's hitting it, but it's not doing anything. So that's why we need to have generate overlap event set to be true. And I save it. I go back. Oh, there's one more thing we need to set true. Simulate physics. Big thing. It wouldn't have done anything because again, if we go back to a blueprint, it checks if whatever it's hitting, is it simulating physics? So if it's simulating physics, I'll go back. I'll grab the heli. I'll shoot it. Oh, it got yeeted. I think we added too much impulse to it. But there it is. Yeah, let's actually add more boxes. So to add more boxes, you can hold Alt on your keyboard and just drag the arrow. It'll create and then release Alt. So if you hold Alt, drag, it creates a duplicate, and then release Alt. So I'll select all three. So if you hold Control, click on objects, it selects multiple objects. I'll hold Alt, drag it, it creates multiple boxes. Alt, drag it, creates multiple boxes. And let's also set our impulse to be not that high. Let's set like 100 to eat it out of the world. Yeah, let's see. Fire. Yeah, that's so much better. Okay, so yeah, that's your firing heli. Okay, so to recap, what all do we know? We know how do we create something grabbable. We know about the VR template. We know about the VR pawn. We know what UE4 components are. And we created our own heli, which on trigger shoots projectiles. And when it hits the boxes, it added an impulse to those boxes. So yeah, that's our workshop. Now we have some time to go over some questions. So that's what we'll do. We'll go over some questions. Okay. So when a person plays a game, they don't require the game engine. So why are they needed? Haha. The game does require the game engine. We just can't see it. If you play a game, there's binaries. There's actually the compiled game engine behind running the actual game. We just don't see it. You don't have to launch like an editor to play the game, but most games are made on a game engine, and in the back end, the game engine is actually rendering, taking in your inputs, running the AI, the, doing all the lighting in the scene, everything. The game engine is the powerhouse of a game. Do we have any workshop for mobile AR apps? I do not have a headset and I would like to work on an AR project for this hackathon. Well, friend, we don't have AR workshop as far as I know, but do check the schedule if there is. It's wonderful. Um, but this link I showed you guys, if you want to get started with web AR, it actually has the code for web AR stuff. And if you go to the completed branch, I have commented code to know how to create an AR application using A-Frame and ARJS. Can I create such applications without a graphics card? I'll say no. You need a dedicated graphics card for these applications just because the Unreal Engine itself, if you check the minimum requirements, which is linked in your hackpack, uh, ooh, I should have opened it in a new tab. It requires GTX 970 or like a 470, which are dedicated graphics cards. So just to run the engine itself, you need a dedicated graphics card. But if you're working on Unity, um, you also might need a graphics card. Like a graphics card is preferred, and I don't think any integrated graphics can run VR at the current stage, 2021 September. I don't think any integrated graphics is so powerful to run VR. Thanks, Krish. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. I just have a really quick question. How can I get started with AR? Would I use the same steps? Um, so this workshop was mainly focused towards VR and Unreal Engine, but as I said in my previous answer, I did run a workshop in AR for another hackathon. So just DM me. I'll send you the link to that workshop. It's actually on YouTube. Actually, I don't even know if I can talk about other hackathons in this hackathon, but I did a workshop for AR, uh, and if you DM me, okay, I can. So let me just show you guys. There's actually, ooh, YouTube is in caps. If you search for superposition, positron, I think, or superposition Toronto, search this superposition Toronto. Uh, there is a workshop. If I can find it, I can't find it. Yeah, they're right there. So I'll just link it. Can I link it? Link it in the Discord. Um, where should I? Let me open Discord. I don't have Discord open. I'll link it in the. Actually, I'll link it later. Give me. I link it. I link it in the AR VR chat. Okay. Give me one sec. Quick second. Well, let's see other questions. There's no other questions. But I need. We have some like 10 minutes. I'll show you some cool stuff. So before this workshop actually did start, I was actually playing around with 4.27. I'll close this project. And if you guys do need the code we just did, just DM in the AR, just send a message in the AR VR chat, and I'll do my best to upload it on GitHub. And you guys can, clone the project and see, take a look around on what we did. But obviously, the best thing I'll recommend is in the YouTube. This stream would be recorded, so just check the YouTube video. That's the best thing. Like following along is easier than just going into someone's code. But let me show you guys something. If I go to desktop, delete me. Oh, that was not delete me. My bad. Let me. It was actually test VR 427. While that opens, is there any other question? There's no other questions. Before everybody leaves, I'll just like to thank Hack the North, the workshop squad, which is behind, running this workshop smoothly. Zafin is behind the screens right now. He's a front end developer, but right now he's at the back end. Haha. But yeah, he's been managing the stream. And yeah, Hack the North, people at Hack the North, the graphics team for designing this wonderful template for the slides as well as the hack pack. It's very beautiful. I had I had a lot of fun making the slides and prepping for the content. But this is what I made before this workshop. I was just playing around with 4.27 when it released, and it's a tank game. You can actually control your tank. Open my headset. So, oh, Unreal is melting. I need both hands for this, and basically, if I can get my left hand to be working, cool. My left hand is working. So you can see my both hands. On my left controller, I can move the tank left and right. On my right, I can set the turret up, down, and on my left trigger, I can shoot. So yeah, I'm trying to make a co-op game where I can have a gunner as well, and we can play co-op together and shoot some stuff. It's mostly be destruction. I don't know why my mind is going that way, but it's fun for some reason. In VR, not in real life, guys. So you can do these kind of stuff in VR. You can drive a tank and shoot. yeah, that was something I was working on. So if you want to chat with me, we actually have lounges on the Discord. So if you see like workshop lounges channel, you can just join it. I'll be there to I'll be tracking it. There's also the AR VR chat where you can send in your questions. Please, if you do make a AR or VR app, let me know how I can help. And yeah, and I would love to see your hacks. Please, if you're doing it VR AR. So before we end this, there's a nice survey. If I can play the survey, how can we help improve workshops at Hack the North, and how can we make this better? Just please leave your feedback. What can we improve on, and how can we get better? Let me know if you can see the survey. Cool. It was great hosting the workshop. I'll see you guys around at Hack the North. Good luck with your hacks. Bye bye.